Thank you for making the trip out here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So before this event, I did a bunch of Googling of your name, and I don't know if it's on purpose, but not much has been written about you, or at least there's not much out there in the public. And I think that's pretty fitting for the CIA. I would love to get your priorities and their timelines, what can maybe be accomplished in 2025, and then what needs of maybe a few more years to bake properly.
Sure. Well, my priorities are director's priorities, which I'll start with the president's priorities, because I think of all the parts of the U.S. government, the CIA should be the most closely attuned to the president's foreign policy agenda. The foreign intelligence that CIA collects should be giving the president a decisive advantage in all of his interactions with foreign leaders. When he's making national security decisions, that is what that intelligence is designed to support. So when we think about those priorities, first it starts with China, because China is the existential threat to American security in a way that we really have never confronted before, in part because that competition with China is on primarily economic lines. And in that respect, it's very different, I think, than the Cold War with the Soviet Union, where obviously we have military and political dimensions to our competition with China now as well, but that economic angle and the technological angle was not there in the same way with the Soviet Union as it is with China today. Which brings me to the second priority, technology, which in some ways is inextricably intertwined with China, but making sure that American industry has a decisive technological advantage over China in these key emerging technology sectors where the future of that competition will be decided.
What are those emerging technology sectors? Because you hear it from the Defense Department often, maybe less so from the CIA.
Well, there's different lists, and depending on the context, there might be different answers there. But I think some of these everyone would intuitively understand: artificial intelligence, quantum computing, biotechnology, semiconductor technology, advanced power when it comes to battery technology or electrical generation technology, right? These are the areas where the competition with China will be decided.
Mm-hmm. And so in February, President Trump sent a tweet or truth that said you would help, quote, fix the CIA, end quote. What exactly needs fixing?
Well, the CIA has fantastic people. That's one of the things that's really impressed me, is the dedication to mission of individuals at the CIA. But at the same time, we have to confront the reality that technical surveillance has made gathering human intelligence much more difficult than it was in the past. If you think about China and smart cities that it's developing, there's cameras in every corner, right? This requires an evolution in operational tradecraft that the CIA has to be able to take on, because while some of the tools and techniques from the 1960s or 70s might still work today, a lot of them need to be updated and refreshed to confront the technological challenges of today.
And so to that point, where is that balance struck between the old school kind of clandestine human tradecraft and then this high-tech advanced computing world we're living in now?
Well, part of it, honestly, is we need to change the composition of the workforce in some respects, right? We need more people with technical backgrounds, more STEM graduates at the CIA. There's still a place for the liberal arts majors. I'm a lawyer by background myself.
I'm a writer.
Right, yeah. But we need more engineers, more computer scientists, fewer people like us.
I hear that a lot as a reporter. How do you develop that workforce then, or how do you at least attract them and then retain them? Because it's two separate issues.
Well, it's part of what Director Ratcliffe and I have been talking about the workforce internally as well, that we want an elite workforce. We want the ultimate meritocracy at the CIA, and that work has to be done free of distraction, free of any political bias. We cannot have weaponization or politicization of the intelligence community. I think that's very clear as well. So again, starting with the president. But part of that, again, means that we want to attract the very best, that when there's a question and we want to find the world's leading expert on any topic, that person should work at the CIA.
In your view, how is the Trump administration reshaping the intelligence community? I typically cover NGA, NRO, DIA, et cetera, but on the CIA side maybe, and what are those implications for national security?
Yeah. So again, part of it is reorienting towards priorities. Part of it is that, like I talked about reshaping the workforce to confront the challenges of today and to really get rid of the distractions and biases that I think may have existed in the past. But, one other area where the Trump administration is re-energizing the intelligence community is on counter-narcotics. This starts again with the president's direction for the total elimination of the cartels, and the intelligence community has a role to play in that. Now, I think for too long, the intelligence community and CIA, among other agencies, viewed counter-narcotics as a primarily law enforcement or homeland security problem, and there are certainly those dimensions to it, right? But this has to be a whole-of-government effort, and it means that the intelligence community is going to play a bigger role in stopping the cartels, in stopping the flow of deadly drugs that are killing tens of thousands of Americans every year. So, it's funny, the CIA has long had a counter-narcotics center. The first time I visited it, their conference room, you have to walk through a kitchen to get to the conference room, and they're like, maybe this is a fun security thing, right? It's the hidden place of CIA. No, it's just they got the worst conference room because this was not a priority for the intelligence community, right? It was not where people went to make their careers. It was not where resources were devoted over the past several decades, and that's changing now. Again, starting with the president's priorities, it's an area where more resources. We want our best people to consider counter-narcotics in addition to these other challenges that I've discussed. So one of the ways that Director Ratcliffe and I took on that priority is to merge our counter-narcotics center with our Western Hemisphere Mission Center to create a new Americas and Counter-Narcotics Mission Center, recognizing that the challenges that confront us in the Western Hemisphere are inextricably intertwined with the counter-narcotics fight, and we have to be able to take them on both at the same time. That keeping China out of the Western Hemisphere and the counter-narcotics fight, these are actually linked objectives.
And those additional resources also are reflected in the Pentagon and with the Navy, with warships down in the Gulf now. And so where or what lessons are you pulling maybe from the Defense Department, from its work abroad, to apply to the CIA's counter-narcotics missions?
Well, we can certainly learn from DOD and from other parts of the government, but honestly, I think there's also a lot of lessons that we can pull just from the CIA, from our counterterrorism efforts over the past 2 decades. Since 9/11, CIA has built a finely tuned machine to disrupt terrorist networks. It has been highly effective. Those same tools and techniques that we have used to disrupt terrorist networks, those can be used to disrupt cartel networks, right? Obviously, there are some differences. These groups have different motivations. Terrorists have primarily an ideological motivation. These cartels are motivated by financial potential profit. But fundamentally, some of these same techniques that we have honed to a very high degree of success in the counterterrorism fight can be applied in counter-narcotics to get our own backyard in order.
As you guys gear up, are you concerned at all about the reported downsizing of the CIA workforce and other organizations? There's been similar concerns at the Pentagon, for example, with those personnel cuts.
I think, again, like I said, we want an elite workforce at the CIA, and we want people who want to be there, who want to contribute to mission. And I think actually having these priorities and putting out that demand signal about being the ultimate meritocracy will help us refine the workforce to be able to confront the challenges that lie ahead. And it's actually an opportunity in some ways to reshape the workforce to get that right blend of technical expertise, acumen, and skill sets that may not reflect where the challenges were 10, 20, 30 years ago.
And so if we zoom out, how do you see the landscape of international competition, international power, international competition? How is that changing? What emerging leaders or countries does the U.S. have on its radar or should have on its radar?
Well, again, China and technology we see as the top priorities. That doesn't mean we can take our eye off the ball in other parts of the world. Obviously, Russia will still be a challenge. It'll still be an intelligence collection priority. Iran, North Korea, these other adversary nations are still there, and we can't ignore them. But when again, thinking about parts of the world, I think for too long the intelligence community neglected the Western Hemisphere, and that is something that we're changing and that we're re-energizing.
So writing about North Korea is extremely difficult, trying to crack into that country as just someone without a clearance. What is the CIA's ability to break into might be a wrong word there, but assess North Korea and keep an eye on Kim Jong-un? What's that like?
Yeah. Well, obviously North Korea is the hardest of the hard targets, right? It's a closed society. I can't get into details about anything particular or anything operational naturally, but again, it's an enduring hard target where we will continue to make sure that we are delivering the president the best possible intelligence to inform his decision making.
Yeah. So let's talk about you. You were at the National Security Council. You're in the private sector. You were on the Hill, and now you're here at the CIA and on the Axios stage. How does that all come together to form your views on competition, domestic and foreign?
Well, I think even just having spent a little time in the private sector over the past 4 years helps inform my views on how the intelligence community needs to take on these new challenges, again, around technology and China. There are a lot of people in government who have spent their entire career in government, and obviously, that's a noble pursuit, but there's a lot that the government can learn from the private sector. There's a lot of efficiencies that we can gain by applying some of those private sector techniques. That's one of the reasons that Director Ratcliffe and I invited Elon Musk to CIA.
What was that like?
He's a guy who named one of his children after a CIA project, the A-12 ox cart. So, it was a fantastic.
That speaks for itself.
Yeah, in some ways it does. Yes.
Yeah.
But he has phenomenal insights in how to create successful businesses, and there's a lot that we can learn from that. There's a lot that CIA does really well, but there's areas where we can do better, and that's what we're seeking to apply in a way that might look a little different than DOGE efforts look in other parts of the government. Obviously, the unique nature of our mission means that we can't apply the same techniques in exactly the same way, but there's still a lot of efficiencies that we can implement, and by doing so, make CIA more agile, better able to confront these challenges. We're
going to have to leave it there. Deputy Director Ellis, thank you for your time today, and to y'all in the crowd, stay put. We've got more ahead.
Thanks for having me.
Dylan.